Have you ever felt like your life was unraveling for no reason? As if everything, your relationships, your identity, your purpose, was being stripped away layer by layer, and you couldn't explain why. You try to hold it together, but nothing sticks. The things that used to make you feel alive now feel hollow. The people who once felt like home now feel like strangers. You might even wonder if you're broken, or worse, losing your mind. But what if you're not falling apart? What if what you're experiencing isn't a collapse, but a calling, a sacred disturbance? In the ancient mystery schools, initiates weren't taught enlightenment, they were broken open. Rituals were designed to shatter the ego, dissolve the illusion of self, and expose the raw truth of existence. That pain, the confusion, the isolation, the identity death, wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning, because before anything awakens, something must die. In this video, we're going to unravel the truth behind spiritual awakenings, what they really feel like, why they so often resemble breakdowns, and how this exact moment in your life, this chaos, might be the most sacred initiation of all. We'll journey through ancient teachings, mystical traditions, and the esoteric blueprint behind awakening. You'll learn why numbness, isolation, and emotional collapse aren't signs of failure, but signposts pointing toward a deeper truth. By the end, you may come to see your struggle not as the end, but as a sacred beginning. This is how it begins. Across time and tradition, the moment of spiritual awakening has never been described as gentle. In fact, the oldest wisdom traditions suggest it's not a moment of light, but one of fire. In the ancient mystery schools of Egypt and Greece, spiritual seekers were subjected to intense rites of passage, initiations designed to dismantle everything they thought they were. Before they could access gnosis or true knowledge, they were led into chambers carved into the earth, silent, cold, and completely dark. There, in complete isolation, they sat with nothing but their mind, their fears, and the abyss. This wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Because spiritual awakening has always meant this: dying before you die. Mystics like Rumi called this process the soul's unraveling. In one of his most hauntingly beautiful lines, he wrote, "Try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you." This surrender, this collapse, is not new. It is encoded into nearly every spiritual and philosophical system. The Tao Te Ching teaches that when the Tao is lost, there is goodness. When goodness is lost, there is morality. A breadcrumb trail describing the descent of awareness into structure, into form, and eventually into illusion. To awaken is not to add more light, but to strip away the false layers that were never yours to begin with. In Jungian psychology, this collapse is known as the dark night of the soul. Carl Jung believed that the most profound transformations come not from the surface, but from confronting the shadow. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." That pain, that disruption, is not a glitch in the path, it is the path. Shamans across indigenous cultures have also spoken of the soul death, an experience of sickness, madness, or despair that signals the beginning of their spiritual power. The shaman-to-be is often struck by what seems like psychosis or breakdown, only to emerge on the other side with newfound vision, insight, and connection to the unseen. Even the story of Christ carries this same rhythm: death before rebirth, the crucifixion before the resurrection, the Garden of Gethsemane, where he cried out in agony, questioning his own path, before submitting to it fully. These aren't just religious metaphors, they are maps. because awakening has always followed this arc: breakdown, disillusionment, surrender, revelation. And here's the part few speak about. When you begin to awaken, you often won't know it. You'll think you're in freefall, but the freefall is grace in disguise, an ancient invitation to finally stop clinging to what was never you. Let's get one thing clear. Spiritual awakening doesn't feel like bliss at first. It feels like loss. Not because something is wrong, but because something is finally being revealed. Imagine your identity as a house. Over the years, you've built it out of beliefs, achievements, trauma, relationships, fears, and inherited expectations. But here's the catch. Most of the materials weren't chosen by you. They were handed to you. Culture, parents, teachers, trauma, social scripts. One day, seemingly out of nowhere, the walls begin to crack. Things stop working. You feel detached. The old motivations no longer spark you. The relationships you've outgrown become suffocating. Even the dreams you once had begin to rot at the edges. You don't know why. You just know something's off. And here's what no one tells you. This is not a failure of the house. It's the soul knocking on the walls saying, this was never your home. Let's talk about what you may be experiencing. Numbness or emotional flatlining. Not because you're broken, but because your system is overloaded with false narratives. Isolation or a desire to withdraw. Not depression, but your energy field pulling back to recalibrate. Sudden identity crisis. The collapse of the ego shell that once kept you safe. Synchronicities or strange dreams. Your subconscious and spiritual self starting to rise to the surface. Heightened sensitivity. Your old filters breaking down, allowing you to feel what you've long avoided. None of these are random, and none of them mean you're broken. They mean you're remembering. Remembering who you were before the programming, before the wounds, before you forgot. From a spiritual lens, your soul has reached a point in its evolution where the current version of your identity can no longer sustain it. It's like a snake shedding its skin, or a hermit crab outgrowing its shell. The shell isn't bad. It protected you. But now it's too small. It's suffocating. And the process of leaving it, it's terrifying. It's messy. It's disorienting, but necessary. Psychologically, this mirrors what Carl Jung called ego death, the moment when the mind structure can no longer support the soul's growth. He described it not as destruction, but transcendence. And it almost always starts with collapse. Because you are, but only the false you. The you that was trained to be acceptable. The you that survived by shrinking. The you that believed safety meant silence. The you that adapted to a system that never understood you. You're not falling apart. You're falling away from what you're not. This is the sacred chaos, the divine disorientation. And it has to come before the clarity, because you can't truly awaken while still clinging to the dream. Once the breakdown begins, your first instinct will be to fix it, to return to the old version of you, to get back on track, to numb it, solve it, or spiritually bypass it. But awakening doesn't respond to control. It responds to surrender, because in truth, there is no track to return to. That path has dissolved, and the one ahead can't be mapped using logic. It can only be revealed through presence. Resistance is the ego's way of clinging to what's familiar, even if it's painful. It says, if I can just hold it all together a little longer, maybe things will go back to normal. But awakening isn't about going back. It's about going in. When you finally stop trying to hold it all together, something incredible happens. the collapse slows. A strange stillness arrives, not comfort yet, but clarity. You begin to feel like you're standing in the ashes, and in those ashes, something sacred is born. This is when you start noticing the whispers, a thought that feels like it came from your soul, not your mind. A moment of synchronicity that feels too aligned to be coincidence. A sudden pull towards silence, nature, journaling, breath. A longing for truth that can't be explained. These aren't random. These are the first signs of the real you, the unconditioned self waking up. It's subtle at first. You may not trust it, but it grows stronger each time you listen. You begin to see your pain not as punishment, but as purification. The patterns, the projections, the codependent ties, all exposed, not to shame you, but to free you. Awakening isn't just about feeling more, it's about seeing more. And that includes seeing your own shadows. No awakening is complete without shadow work, because awakening isn't just a return to light. It's the integration of everything that was hidden. That means seeing the parts of you that betrayed yourself to be loved, the rage you buried under politeness, the fear that drove your ambition, the grief of never truly being seen. This isn't easy, but it's sacred, because in bringing it to the surface, you become whole again. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop running. You stop lying to yourself. You become sovereign. After the storm, there is silence. Not because everything is fixed, but because you are no longer trying to escape yourself. You begin to trust what you can't prove. You begin to speak what you used to swallow. You begin to choose peace over performance. Your external life may look simpler, less flashy, less filled, but your inner world, it comes alive. You notice beauty in small things. You hear intuition like a whisper you've always known. You feel connected to life, to source, to everything. That's the truth few tell you. Awakening doesn't make you perfect. It makes you real. If you've made it this far, maybe you already know. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. It's not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough disguised as destruction. The numbness, the confusion, the disconnection. They're not signs you're broken. They're signs that something deeper is waking up inside you. And it no longer fits the life you've outgrown. You're not falling apart. You're falling into alignment. It's messy. It's sacred. It's terrifying. And it's one of the most beautiful things a soul can experience. Because real awakening doesn't happen in temples or retreats. It happens in living rooms, while you're crying on the floor at 2 a.m. It happens in the middle of your job, your relationship, your routine. When everything starts to feel false. It happens when the life you built can no longer contain who you're becoming. You're not alone in this. You're not crazy. And you're definitely not the only one. In fact, more people are awakening now than ever before. And if this video reached you, maybe, just maybe, it's your time. So don't rush to fix it. Don't numb it. Don't try to go back. Breathe, stay open. And listen to what your soul is trying to tell you. You were never meant to stay asleep. And this is how it begins.